Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Kevin Stapleton, and in my full-time job, I'm an economist with the Vermont Department of Labor, and you just heard that I was an economist, and half of you have already fallen asleep. You might know, though, that economists, people are very interested in what we have to say very rarely, but this past week has been one of those times because what happened at Silicon Valley Bank and all that. Basically, anytime people find us interesting, it's because something has gone very, very wrong. But I hope today to share with you some information that will be helpful about sort of where the economy stands now and what the career outlook is, and some of the skills and just some general information, I guess, about young people entering college and how they can use the information that our office provides to help them make informed decisions about their careers. This is the division I work for. It's a division of the Vermont Department of Labor called the Economic and Labor Market Information Division. We are housed in the Department of Labor, but we are funded 100%, 99.5% by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is a branch of the Federal Department of Labor, and an outfit called the Employment and Training Administration. And our job really is to collect and disseminate economic information to help Vermonters make good decisions. We believe that good data can help drive good decisions. And so what we do is collect and analyze a whole lot of information and share that with people like yourselves. This is an interesting confluence for me to be here today because I have a graduate degree from here, the University of Vermont, and I'm part-time faculty in a branch of UVM called the Department of Community Development and Applied Economics. So I'm sort of dipping my toes into both worlds, both of my professional worlds today. So anyway, so that's who we are. That's where I come from as I speak to you today. I want to encourage you, if anything I say sparks a question, please don't hesitate to just go ahead and ask, raise your hand or whatever. Don't hesitate to interrupt me. I will try to, I know we're supposed to wrap up at 11:30. I'll try to leave some time for questions at the end, but if you have any along the way, don't hesitate to hop right in and ask. First of all, one problem with asking an economist to come talk about career outlooks is that the first thing we always want to do is talk about the economy itself. So we're going to take a really brief minute or two just to take a look at where the economy stands today in Vermont. You may or may not be aware that since the pandemic started, we can have a quiz here and ask you to identify where on this bar graph. This is employment, change in employment over time since February of 2020. And I don't think you would even need the dates on here to identify when the pandemic started. It's that really, really deep decline there. It's kind of hard to read on this thing for some reason, but what this tells us is that when the pandemic started between March and April of 2020, the Vermont economy, the green line, lost about 21% of its jobs. Over a 2-month period, the economy in Vermont lost about 60 or 65,000 jobs, about 20% of all the jobs in the state. By far the biggest drop in the series. And it was an interesting change because you can kind of compare it, the drop, not the rebound, to the Great Depression, except the Great Depression wasn't done on purpose, right? In this case, we intentionally shut the economy down for good reason, but we did that on purpose and we lost about 20% of the jobs. And the nation as a whole only lost about 15% of jobs, and that's down to just a different industry mix. And we have larger concentration of industries that were more hard hit. So over time, though, we have gained back most of those jobs. The US economy is well beyond where it was when the when the pandemic started and the recession started. But the state of Vermont is still a little bit below where it was. Our pace of gains has been very similar, but we fell more to begin with. So we're a little bit behind still. The interesting thing about this situation now, and I know we're talking to people who are entering college, so what the economy is doing right now is not relevant because you want to know where it's going to be in 4 years. hopefully 4 years, right? But we don't know that, of course. But what we do know right now is that the lack of jobs is not due to any lack of desire on the part of firms to hire. The number of openings is at record levels. There's 20,000 job openings in the state. There were 27,000 at one point. There are 20,000 plus job openings in the state. And there are only about 9,000 or 10,000 unemployed people. So if you take the 10,000 unemployed people, all of them would have to get 2 jobs just to fill the demand for jobs right now. Because firms are desperately trying to hire. And this probably is not a new story to you. You've probably heard people talking about this. But data-wise, there are 10,000-ish unemployed people, and there are 20,000 or more job openings. It is a really good time to be on the demand side for labor, to be looking for work. Part of this, and I know that this is a bit of an overwhelming chart. So is there not a pointer on here? What's that? Oh, yeah. So what we're really focused on is right here. This is the labor force before the, pay no attention to that. That's what economists call nonsense. So pay no attention to this part. Just worry about right here. This is what the labor force was. The labor force is all of the unemployed people plus all of the people who have jobs. So you see that we had this steep decline in the labor force during the pandemic, and it has been very slow to come back. And what that means is there are still a lot of people on the sidelines. There's about 7,000 people. Well, yeah, there are about 7,000 people who were working prior to the pandemic who are not back in the labor force now, who are also not of retirement age. So there's more than that who have left the labor force, but a lot of them are retired, right? But there's a significant number, 7,000 or so, who are still sort of on the sidelines. And one of the big policy questions is, why are they on the sidelines? The good news, if you're entering college, is that this problem, if you consider this a problem, and economically it's a problem, the good news is that to the degree it resolves itself, it will do so very, very slowly. The labor market in Vermont, on a secular trend, we might have a recession or something like that, but the long-term trend is that there will be a shortage of labor in this state. So if you graduate from college in Vermont and you want to stay here, and we sure hope you want to stay here because we need young people like yourselves to stay here, there should be a lot of opportunities. Again, the business cycle, you might graduate into a recession or whatever, but the long-term trend is that there will be lots and lots of opportunities for people. And then a lot of people ask the next question, well, what are those opportunities in? And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here. I'm happy, by the way, at the end to discuss with you any specific degree or any specific occupation that you have in mind, the details of that. I can show you where to get that information. I'm going to speak broadly here because I don't know what y'all are going to study. But let's dive into what we do know. Speaking as either the young person in the room or speaking for your young person, how many of you know what career you might pursue? Anybody know? Some of you are like, I already have a career, right? Don't know, okay. How many of you are considering an array of different careers, trying to figure that out? Some of you? And then finally, is there anyone who has no idea? No idea. Okay. The beauty of it is that at your age, that's fine. And I'm a lot older than that, and I'm still not sure what my career is going to be, right? But so you have time, and one of the beauties of college, since I'm talking to a group of people who are, I presume, looking to enter college, one of the beauties of college is that in that first year of college, you can explore a wide range of different topics and find one that suits your interests, that really grabs you, that you're passionate about. And it's true that if your goal is financial stability, and that's your only goal, then you should be an engineer or an anesthesiologist, because those are the highest paying jobs. But there's a lot more, obviously, to life than being an engineer or an anesthesiologist. And what that first year or so of college lets you do is explore all of those. And as you're doing that, you've probably had a job before. And when you graduate from college, well, during college and after college, you'll have a job. But what we want to do, both in college and in the jobs you have around college, is start to build a career. Because a job is just something you do to earn money. But a career is a long-term professional journey, ideally doing something you love. And I use myself as an example real quickly. I started my journey in a completely different field and spent 10 or 12 years in that, and then went back to graduate school. And I only share that to say that you're not pinned to it. It's nice if you find what you're passionate about early on, but you're not pinned to it for life. You can change. And also, more importantly, the skills you learn in a job are very often transferable to a wide range of other jobs that you might not have considered. So one of the tools we'll talk about in a little bit is a tool that says, like, here's the skills, tasks, abilities, knowledge you need for a job. And here are all the other jobs that use that same set or that same basic set of skills, which means these are other jobs that perhaps you've never thought of that you would also be qualified for based on the skills that you have. College is about building a life and a career you love. So at LMI, LMI is the Economic and Labor Market Information Division. We shorthand ourselves at LMI. We believe that data can help guide you as you pursue your career. And we encourage you to use the data we provide and the data that other people provide to help you do that. A lot of times when we talk to young people, they say, well, can I have a career in this? Is there a career for people who are really good at drawing or at bringing images to life? And the answer is yes. There's graphic designers out there. That's what they do. They bring images to life in order to, in most cases, successfully sell something. Whatever it is that your passion is, if you tailor it with the right mix of classes in college, it can become a career. Unless it's skiing or basketball or something like that, in which case you're still learning critically important life skills, but the chances of you becoming a professional basketball player, I can just tell based on the height of everyone who's in this room that the chances of most of us becoming a professional basketball player are pretty low. And you're here today on probably the best ski day of the year, so your chances of being a professional skier are probably limited as well. So let's talk a little bit about tools that are available that can help guide you a little bit. In our office, we produce occupational projections. So if you're wondering how many, you have a career in mind, and you think, I wonder if we need that job in Vermont. First of all, the answer is yes. We need every occupation in this state right now. But you can get an idea from our occupational projections of how much demand we expect there to be for a certain job. For example, and this is totally chosen at random, does not require a college degree, as it turns out, but electrical power line installers and repairers. Raise your hand if your dream in life is to be an electrical power line installers and repairers. I talk to a lot of young people, and in a group of 100 young people, 1 or 2 people will raise their hand and say, that sounds like a great job. And that's good because we need people who want to do this job, right? And what we know is that there are about 360 of them in Vermont right now, and that by 2030, we'll need about 367 of them. That's our estimate. And you might think, well, you need 6 more over the next 10 years. By the way, 2020 that's considered really, really current for economists. I know that's 3 years old, but for us, that's like yesterday's best information. But so you might think that that's a really small number. I don't want to pursue the skills required for that job because we only need 6 more of them. But of course, people retire, people change jobs, people change careers. So we expect we'll need about 30 of those every year, 30 per year in a state of 600,000 people. It's not zero. There is actually high demand, and this job can't be filled right now. Firms that do this work, mainly power companies, can't find people to do this. And I will say it is a very hard job to fill. Any guesses why it's a hard job to fill? It's high risk, right? And when are you needed the most? When it's the worst out. Like think about you're like, I want to have a job outdoors. I used to have a job outdoors. It was great. When was that job not great? When the weather was bad. When are electrical power line installers and repairers needed? When the weather is bad. So firms can't find people to do this work right now. But as it turns out, it's not because of a lack of wages. It's a really well-paying job. Median wage in Vermont of $47 per hour, almost $100,000 a year. Now, these positions can't be filled, not because of the wages, but because of the work environment. There's two things, well, there's a lot of things, but in its most basic form, there's two things that drive wages. Risk and work environment combined, sort of the broad environment within which you're working, and risk is often associated with work environment. And skills required to do the job. Specificity of skills, specialization, and that is where college leads to increased wages without increased risk. College gives you the skills to do a job that is more specialized, and because it's more specialized, it has higher wages. And there's more to life than wages, but wages matter because wages are what are going to allow you to do a lot of the things that you want to do. So when we look at careers, you can get a high wage job through risk. There are also, by the way, not to downplay it, there are some very critical skills and knowledge required to do this work. It is not a low skill job. It is a very high skill job that requires a lot of training and education. Just doesn't happen to be the type of education that you typically get at a 4-year college. But in college, we are focused on careers, and wages are higher for college graduates, and they are, by the way. Wages for college graduates on average are about, what is that? About 35% higher than workers without a college degree. That doesn't mean that there aren't people out there without a college degree who are making tons of money. There are, but overall, the specialization that you learn in college is what helps you demand a higher wage when you graduate, and that shows up in the data as college graduates having wages about 35% higher than people without a college degree. And it's also true that you can get a college degree and go back and do a job that doesn't require it. Your parents might find that a little disappointing, but you can do that, right? But without the college degree, you can't compete for a lot of the jobs that are out there. This same occupational projections that gave us this data and this data also give you tons of information about that job, what type of work is involved, what type of education is required to attain those jobs, what the outlook is for that job, what the work environment is like, what skills, knowledge, abilities are required. And on our website, I hope I'm going to the right slide next. Yes, I am. On our website, and I'll share all this with you at the end, on our website, we have detailed profiles of all, I think there's 480 or something occupations that meet the criteria to publish in the state of Vermont. And we have all sorts of information for every one of them. And this looks like maybe not all that much information, but that's because I can't scroll on a PowerPoint slide. This will scroll for about 5 pages because there's a tremendous amount of information about every occupation. And one of the most important things you'll find on here, if you went down farther, is that the skills and abilities that are required for that job and the knowledge that is required for that job. Detailed descriptions. And you might ask yourself, well, how do you know what these are? The reason most of this information is here is because we ask employers. Not we, as it turns out, but our federal partners at the Employment and Training Administration. They ask employers, what are the skills, knowledges, and abilities required for those positions? And then they aggregate all that and publish the most common ones. And as I said, we have this, yeah. So if you go to, instead of going to the Department of Labor's website, and I will share this with you after, but I know people are on Zoom, so I want to make sure to get this out there. It's www.vt as in Vermont, LMI as in labor market information, .info, www.vtlmi.info, and then just click on occupations. And there's a profile for just about every occupation you can think of. And I'm happy to share that with you directly, show you where it is after we're done here. Yep. We also have these little career videos that I don't find them helpful, but other people do. So, and then I want to talk a little bit here when we talk about the skills needed and the skills that are in high demand, spend a little bit of time talking about what employers need. So it's hard to speak broadly about very specific skills that are in high demand right now. But before we talk about employer needs, let me just say a couple things that broadly apply to anyone who might be pursuing a 4-year degree and skills, the skills that you gain in that. We talk to a lot of employers, and if you talk to them long enough, just about every career you might pursue that requires a college degree or that would benefit from a college degree would benefit from, and I know if for young people, you're like, please don't tell me this, but it's true, a statistics course. I am not paid by the Department of Math and Statistics at UVM. I'm paid by the Community Development and Applied Economics folks, but I'm here to tell you, in the modern world, you might think, well, I want to study history. I want to study English literature. So much of what is done in research in those fields these days is done with statistical analysis, that whatever fields you go into, possibly, no. I was about to give you an exception. I'm wrong about that. So just about any field you go into, you're going to benefit from sitting through one semester, introductory statistics, to understand the mental framework that is used in statistics, which is also used in just about every piece of academic research that is done these days. These days, it is becoming fundamental broadly to research. So statistics, I was not a math major, but one math course that is interesting to you, and there are math courses that are not for advanced math majors. And then making sure that along the way, if you're going into engineering or you're going into economics, whatever it might be, that you find a few classes that are far outside of your usual degree program and expose yourself to them. It will make you both a better person and will also make you a better employee one day. And in an interview or in a situation, it will give you a broader range of things to discuss. So when we talk about what employers need, though, we often refer to this employer hierarchy of needs. I would like to say that we did not make this up, but as it turns out, we did. My office we think about the labor market. We think about labor markets all the time. We think about sort of three different levels of people in the labor market. There's people at the entry level who, when you have those entry level jobs, maybe your first, anybody want to share what their first job was? Pizza's perfect. So at a pizza shop, my first job was at a Burger King, so not all that dissimilar. So at a pizza shop, you might think, well, I didn't learn much there. I was just cooking pizzas, although maybe now in retrospect, you look at it a little differently. But at the time, you think, I'm just learning how to make pizzas, and there's not much of a career really in making pizzas. First of all, there is quite a career. American Flatbread's done pretty well with it, but also you're learning some really important skills in those early jobs. Things like showing up on time, ready to work, following instructions, working well with others. And most jobs, the way that our economic structure has been created, most jobs in most industries are these entry level or these level 1 jobs. Because the base of every economy is the people in the front line actually doing the work in just about every industry. Because that does not require any highly specialized skills, the wages are lower. College is part of what moves you from these jobs to these jobs. Technical skills and problem solving. If you ask employers what they're looking for, and you boil down their answers, because if you just ask them straight up what you're looking for, you get a wide variety of things. But if you sort of categorize their answers, problem solving skills and critical thinking skills, which are directly related, if you think about it for a second, critical thinking skills, the ability to take various sources of information and combine them into a single useful piece of information, and problem solving skills, those are far and away the most common things that employers look for in employees. And going to college and exposing yourself to a wide range of coursework is one of the most important ways that you can build problem solving skills and critical thinking skills. When we talk to employers, we have critical thinking skills, that's college, problem solving skills. The other ones are things you learned in large part, things you learned at your first job. Show up to work on time, ready to work. I can't begin to tell you how many employers right now, when you say, what do you need? They say, we just need somebody who will show up on time, ready to work. We'll train the rest. And this is not just entry-level jobs, entry-level jobs in a restaurant or at a retail store. This is pretty advanced jobs, especially in the trades. What do you need? We need somebody who's going to show up tomorrow on time, and we're going to train them in all the rest of it. So showing up on time, ready to work, critical thinking skills, customer service skills, those you probably gained in one of your earlier jobs, basic math and language, and then this isn't really relevant to this group because you all are going to college, but when you go into interviews, when you start down the path of starting your more formal career, one of the challenges is how do you demonstrate to employers that you have those skills? So it's one thing, employers never going to ask you straight up, do you have critical thinking skills? Because anybody who's with any critical thinking skills would answer the question, yes. But demonstrating that you do have that is important. And if somebody asks you in an interview, are you going to show up on time and ready to work? Or do you have a habit of showing up on time? Anybody with critical thinking skills is going to say yes. But if you can say yes, and here's why. When I was in high school, I missed 3 days of class and I showed up late to class 2 times. Whatever you can do to or say at my last job, please speak to my last employer if you want to, I never missed a day of work. Whatever it might be, ways to demonstrate these things. Beyond the critical thinking and the problem-solving skills, you get into questions of what exactly does the employer need? What are they looking for? And that is where the earlier occupational profiles can help you, because the employer knows a lot more about the job than you do. But as long as you know what the occupation is, you can go to the website and look. Every employer is a little bit different, but you can look on the website. What are the skills that they need? Here's the skills they need. Because we've asked thousands of employers, and here's what employers hiring for that occupation say they need. And then think about how do I demonstrate I have those skills? Or if you're entering college and pursuing a career, what do I need to do to gain all of these skills here before I graduate? There's more to college than just finding the first job after college. But while you're here, you might as well take the time to make sure that when you're done, you have those skills ready. And that's the kind of information that you can find on our website. I can point you to a couple other national websites as well. The other thing that you will find under these occupational projections is a button where you can click and see everywhere in the country where people are hiring for that job. We want you to stay in Vermont, but we also want you to click the button and explore your options in other places. And sometimes you'll find that certain careers that are not very high demand in Vermont, very high demand in other places. The easiest example, because I graduated from the University of Texas for undergrad, is in Texas, there's tremendous demand for petroleum engineers. UVM doesn't even have a petroleum engineering department, but there are a lot of regional differences in careers that are in demand, and you can find that on the occupational projections site. So finally, while you're in school, one of the best way to gain skills is by finding an internship that will give you an introduction to the real life application of whatever it is that you are pursuing. As a college faculty member, I will say that some of the most important learning students have is off campus in internships such as that. As a representative of the Vermont Department of Labor, I will say that if you are going to pursue an internship, there are two kinds. There are internships where you are paid to do the work, and there are internships where the point of you being there is not to advance the business, but to advance your skills. If they are hiring you as an unpaid intern and you are advancing their work, you should be a paid intern. If they are hiring you to give you exposure to the type of work they do, to teach you some skills to build your resources, then that can be an unpaid internship. But if you are doing work to advance their business, by law, that should be a paid internship. We hire interns, and if in your career at UVM, if you find any of this interesting, first of all, you should consider the economics department if you find any of this interesting, but also if in your career at UVM, you're looking for an internship opportunity, we hire interns. We expect you to do work for us. So therefore, and we're a representative of the Vermont Department of Labor, so we pay, but we have a range of paid internships if you're ever interested in pursuing a little bit more of the sort of the economics of Vermont and the type of work that we do. I said I would leave time for questions, and I managed to leave about a minute and a half, but I will be around after, so happy to answer any questions you have. Does anyone have questions? Anything? Yeah. It depends on the employer, but nobody ever got fired for being on time. Never once. And people do get fired for being late. It is even employers who are and this is just speaking from experience, even employers who feel who seem flexible about it, probably are not as flexible. They are making mental notes. It's important. Yeah. Yeah. Why are so people? So there's about 7,000 of them, we think, right? There are a few hypotheses about what's going on there. Probably the biggest factor is that childcare has become less reliable and more expensive, and so that people have a less strong connection to the labor market because they are worried about having to cover their children's stuff. That's one part of it. Probably the most significant part. There is some sense, and data doesn't, it's hard to get this in data, but there does appear to be a slight shift in the relationship of two-parent families, especially low-income two-parent families, to the labor market. The number of two-parent families where both parents are working again, who were working before the pandemic, that number is still, well, let me rephrase that. The percentage of two-parent low and moderate, the percentage of low and moderate two-parent, low and moderate income, two-parent families where both parents are working is about 3% lower than when the pandemic started. So that explains, if you do the math on that, and you know the math on that, explains about 1.5 of the 7,000, maybe 2 of the 7,000, right? And then there's just if you look up online, you can find all sorts of questionable explanations for what's going on. One of the interesting things is, prior to the pandemic, people complained that young people weren't working much. It was the proverbial, and actually the literal, my kids living in my basement thing, right? And young people have sprung back into the labor market post-pandemic faster than just about any cohort. So it's not the living in the basement syndrome. Yeah. So there was, when the pandemic struck, the unemployment insurance outflows of unemployment insurance were very substantial. And for the first 6 months of the pandemic, if you earn less than $50,000 a year, it was more profitable to stay home. Now, that was in part because the government wanted you to stay home. It's incentivized you to stay home. But that has some long-term impact, and there might still be people staying home based on that. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So this, yeah. Yep. Yeah. So let me say first one thing about the McClure brochure. That brochure is made by the McClure Foundation with our data. We do a lot of work on it as well. It's a wonderful brochure, especially if you find your occupation in there, right? If you don't find your occupation in there, you might think, well, it's not high demand, it's not high wages. There are, as I said earlier, 480 some odd occupations, and there's 53 of them in there. Resort work probably won't show up in there because on average, the wages are below the median. And this is only jobs above the median. There are a lot, obviously, there's a lot of seasonal work in Vermont around resorts. And there are a not insignificant number of Vermonters who make their living out of working at skiers in the winter and some kind of summerish resort in the summer, especially young people. But yeah, but it will never hit this thing because the wages are relatively low. Yeah. And, oh yeah, question? We like those. Yep. Yes. You can. I'm going to say this as an economist, but not a representative of the Vermont Department of Labor. You could allow people to build more homes. You could allow people to build more homes, a lot more homes. And part of the challenge we have is that housing prices are very high. We have all these job openings. People come to dealer, which is like one of the highest paying, probably one of the highest paying firms in the state. Software engineers get invited to take a job at dealer on Pine Street and can't find an affordable place to live. Dealer, it's not because dealer's paying minimum wage. The housing market is locked right now. And their prices are high and there's nothing available. Anybody live in the New North End? You live in the New North End, yeah. I encourage you to go to Zillow and see how many homes are for sale in 05408. Zero. There are 0 homes for sale in 05408. There are 6,000 units and there are 0 of them for sale. You're going to go home and find one because somebody put their listing today. But yeah. So yeah, you can build more housing. Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much. And I'll be around for a few minutes if you have any questions, all that. And then I'm headed to go skiing. So have a great day. Yeah.